Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the August meeting of the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund.
Don, I'm going to get the recording started. I'm so sorry. I didn't have 9 on my computer yet. I apologize for interrupting you.
All right. Are we ready? Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the August meeting of the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund. This meeting will have a somewhat different beginning because due to the legislation passed by the legislature last spring, we need to elect a chairperson due to the restructuring of the board. We have consulted Robert's Rules of Order, and it states that in situations like this, where there is no official chair, the board secretary, which is defined as the paid staffer, is authorized to conduct the meeting until a transition in leadership has taken place. So I will turn it over to Melissa.
Thank you, Don, and welcome everyone. The first order of business would be a call for nominations for our board chair.
Melissa, it's Lietta. I would like to nominate Don Heineman as chair. I think he does an amazing job if he's willing to serve.
I am willing.
I would second that, Senator Sykes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I pause for a moment. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, a vote is in order, and we will conduct a roll call vote. So Dave Younger.
Aye.
Representative Laura Williams.
Aye.
Representative Christy Williams.
Aye.
I don't know that I see Representative Suzanne Weichel. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we need a vote on our board chair. Don Heineman was nominated and seconded if you missed that. So we're doing a roll call vote, and you're up.
I did miss that. I apologize. I vote yes.
Dr. Tara Wallace?
Yes.
Senator Dinah Sykes?
Yes.
Tabitha Rossbroy?
Yes.
Don Heineman?
Yes.
Dr. Lietta Felter?
Yes.
Senator Renee Erickson? I know she was having a bit of an issue coming off mute. There she is. Senator Erickson?
There we go. All right. Yes.
Thank you. And Senator Tori Marie Blue? Sometimes our technology is...
Oh, did it not go through?
There you are.
Aye.
Thank you all. And I am delighted to be able to turn the the chair of the meeting back to our duly elected chairman, Don Heineman.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. And thank you all for your vote of confidence. I look forward to the next year. I believe the election of a chair will be annual from this point forward. So I'm anxious to get started. We have quite a number of new folks on the board. Typically, we would do self-introductions at the start of a meeting. However, one of our members has an important event to get to this afternoon. So in deference to Senator Sykes, whose son is getting married this afternoon, we're going to delay self-introductions until later in the meeting, so we make sure that she doesn't miss any important votes. So with that, we'll move ahead to adoption or approval of the minutes from the June meeting and also the board retreat. You have the minutes that have been sent out to you. It's my intention to approve those by acclamation unless there is objection. All right, seeing none, they are approved. Moving on to CB awards or grants, Melissa.
Thank you, Don. And for the board, this is, I know there's a number of you who are new to the business of the board. So I will just give you a little bit of brief background on the community-based child abuse prevention grants that we oversee at the Children's Cabinet. Lindsay, I think we can move on to the next slide. The CBCAP program, as we call it, is a federal funding program, and the Children's Cabinet is the designated state lead for this to receive this funding and administer it. It is a small amount of money, but it is important in the grand scheme of things because it is designed to focus on programs and services that prevent child abuse and support families and do work in the realm of primary prevention, which is upstream prevention before crisis erupts, and you know, an agency like DCF or the courts have to get involved with issues of child endangerment or abuse or neglect or those sorts of things. This is effort aimed at providing preventive programs. Sometimes it's secondary prevention where there is a family on the brink of crisis. And again, these are programs aimed at strengthening parenting skills and supporting families with referrals to necessary services and helping make sure that we're wrapping enough support around the situation that it doesn't lead to child maltreatment and the potential that children need to be removed into foster care. We have conducted a research study in partnership with DCF. We published some of the findings last year in our annual report from 2024. These types of programs and services raise the probability that a child will be able to remain in their home and the family remain intact. So we are delighted to have the opportunity to be able to support this program. And even though this is not a CIF funded program, we still feel strongly in the process that we utilize here at the Children's Cabinet for granting funds. So we operate the CBCAP and other types of federal funding. We still bring to the board for approval of the awards that the cabinet issues. So we'll if we could move to the next slide, Lindsay. This is the timeline for the process, and it was more condensed this year than it normally is. We would ordinarily have issued the RFP sometime in April and closed it earlier in June so that the review period was slightly longer. Couldn't do that because the federal guidelines were being updated and we did not receive them until that point in May. So we opened the RFP, public application. We use a grant management platform called the Kansas Common App. So we opened the portal on the 14th. The next day we held a technical assistance webinar for anyone who was interested in the application. We walked through the RFP, the rubric that would be used to evaluate the applications and so forth. We took questions, started tracking the questions getting asked as we worked to develop the portfolio of resources for grant applicants to refer to. Applications were due by June 23rd at 5 p.m., close of business. The review period has been ongoing, and today we bring the slate of recommendations to the board for your consideration and vote on the final the approved slate. The official grant year begins on October 1st and will cycle on the federal fiscal year cycle, wrapping up September 30th. We will not issue any of the official grant award documents, the legal agreements for signature until and unless we receive our federal award notice. So it's likely going to be mid-September before we actually receive that award notice. So we'll talk about why we're needing to take this vote today in just a second. Lindsay, if you could move on to the next slide, I'd appreciate it. So as mentioned, there was technical assistance available to anyone interested in applying for the grant. As we held the webinar and fielded questions and then took questions that were either asked directly of us or through the help desk support element of the Common App, we tracked those questions. We developed an FAQ document, and that was posted and kept up to date on our website. We had a total of 29 technical assistance requests. It totaled about 4 hours of TA provided. The help desk was also available if people just had issues navigating in the Common App. That support was also available to applicants. So they could either talk through the criteria of the RFP itself or receive that kind of technical help. In total, we received 18 applications, and the total amount of funding requested was 3.2 million and change. Last year, our federal award was just over 1.5 million. Our slate is reduced to the amount that you see on screen, $1,236,897.70, as we anticipate a reduction in the federal funding this year. We don't know where we'll land with the grants that are handed out from the federal government. There is a formula used to determine the distribution of the funding. I do know that in the congressional appropriation, there was a reduction of overall funding for CB-CAP. So we are trying to be anticipatory. We have recommended 20% less in grant funding in this slate and hope that we have landed appropriately close to the mark based on what we see in terms of the scale of the federal reduction. It will make the decision making today a little tricky because we can't know for sure if we've landed exactly. I think what I would share with the board is that in a world where I don't see a change in federal funding that would allow us to add anybody back in. So the slate that is adopted today will be the slate of grantees that I think we'll be working with. The question is whether the specific award amounts will need any adjustments or not. And I think unless we received a significant enough reduction from where we've landed, I don't anticipate we would drop anyone from the recommended slate. I think we would end up adjusting award amounts. So if we, if you wouldn't mind, let's. Well, I do see Representative Williams' question.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so these Title II grants have been going on for a while. So could you give us, was there a comparison? I didn't see it in my packet of previous years and how many of these applicants, maybe it was on the report and I didn't see it, have received these awards in the past.
Yeah, the spreadsheet that you received does indicate the slate being recommended. Lindsay, we could move on to that slide. The slate being recommended they are existing grant recipients. We have opted not to recommend any new programs for funding, given a couple considerations: the uncertainty of the award amount, but the certainty that it will be less than last year, and the success of the programs that we're recommending for funding. And onboarding the first year that somebody new receives a grant award is usually very tricky, and we thought it prudent not to disrupt services already being delivered. So your slate is on screen. It is mostly, we're recommending flat funding, no increases. There are some reductions to the Kansas Children's Service League grant activities. We are trying to be mindful of the fact that we are required to have a statewide prevention program that receives funding as a condition of the federal program. That takes a pretty big percentage of the award amount. So you'll see that we have reduced that line item because otherwise it boxes out the ability to grant much anywhere else. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to open for questions.
Well,
Mr. Chair.
Melissa?
Christy, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I had a couple other questions if that would be appropriate.
Sure.
Okay. So since we've been doing these for quite some time, and I don't know exactly how long, I don't know if it's been since the 90s or the 2000s. But in context, it would be nice to kind of see how is this impacting the lives and the safety of our children, and what is the success of this investment, and can we find outcomes for these particular areas where, for example, the number of reports of child neglect or endangerment, abuse, how many of those reports have been followed up on? Are we keeping more kids in families? What is there any measurement whatsoever for these recipients that over time we're improving outcomes? And if
Yes.
so, do we have that? And is that something that you've submitted to our board?
Yes, we have conducted an analysis. We matched our data from this program and our early childhood block grant with DCF's foster care data. We've done a rigorous analysis. It was published in our annual report last year. It begins on page 70, continues on page 71. There is a significant reduction in the likelihood that children need to be removed from their homes when these services are provided, this type of prevention service. We identified a 28% less likelihood that children are removed into foster care. We've seen a reduction in the overall foster placement in Kansas over time, and these are the types of services proven to help support families and head off crisis before it happens and children are harmed.
Okay, so just a final question. When you say 28% likelihood, you are matching that with real data?
Yes, we are.
Okay, page 70, 71. Thank you.
Yeah.
Board members, further questions or observations for Melissa? Senator Blue.
Thank you. Melissa, I just have a question just with what's going on in the federal government and the uncertainty of a lot of things. I know that you said that you lowered this a little bit. You're not quite sure what to expect, so forth. Are you concerned at all that you could be receiving less than the 1.2 million?
It's possible, and I think, as I noted, I think we're in the ballpark. The reduction federally, I had we looked into it. There's $10 million less that was appropriated for the upcoming federal fiscal budget. So we have reduced. We've tried to align the percent reduction in what we're recommending to the percent reduction in the federal program. And if we, like I said, that's the best estimate that, it seems they follow a formula for distributing these grants that it involves it's partly population based, and then states have to report different budget metrics that go into their formula for distributing. And I can't explain it any more specifically than that, because there's not a lot of information available that I've found about how specifically that formula operates. But we've reduced 300,000 over last year. It was a $1.5 million award that we last received. So we've reduced this down by 20% to 1.2 million. So we think we're in the right ballpark.
Well, thank you. My follow-up to that is you're seeing a lot of programs that have anything to do with DEI, and so that was my one concern is, could it come back and say that some of these programs possibly are have DEI on the federal side, that then we won't receive those funding mechanism? If that makes sense what I'm asking.
What I can say is that the RFP was very clear in directing applicants to the executive order that was issued federally on the topic of DEI, and in accordance with the federal guidelines that we received, we directed applicants to that notice and asked that they comply in their grant, the grant activities that they wrote into their grant plans.
Okay, I just thought that was my one concern is could they come back and somebody thinks that they're getting $350,000 and in the end, no, it doesn't comply at all. So that was my concern.
Good question. Melissa.
Mr. Chair, if I may, we have to submit an application to the feds to continue funding, and we were very careful in our our own write-up to be in compliance, and I think we're fine. I think we wrote a solid RFP, and there were no red flags raised to our Kansas application.
Okay, good. So you believe that the award will be very close to the 1.236 million?
I do.
If it does come in below that, is it your intention to do a pro rata reduction to the awardees?
That is likely. I think what needs to happen though is understanding if their project is still viable with a reduction in funding. And so what I would say is this is the slate that gets approved by this board will be the slate of grant recipients that we work with to make budgetary adjustments. If we need to drop somebody who can't make it work with less than the recommended amount, like if there were some movement in the list of grant programs, we would probably need to call, well, not probably, we would call a special meeting to address. But I think if it's a question of a percentage adjustment, I would request, it would make the work easier if we had permission to make those adjustments on the staff side and report to the board as to what goes on.
Senator Sykes.
Thank you. So just to clarify, Melissa, so if it came in and we got $50,000 less in that award, you could probably do a haircut across the board with a little small change to make that work. Yep. But if it came in larger and you're having to shift to make sure that Family Resource Center has all of the things to, or Family Conservancy, yep. If it's a bigger thing than just kind of that haircut, you would come to the board to make sure.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions? All right. You can proceed, Melissa.
I think, Mr. Chair, I am done with prepared remarks.
Okay. So in the email, there was a larger handout that broke down the awards by recipient. Everyone has had a chance to look at those. So if you have any further concerns, now is your time to voice them before we have a move to a vote. Seeing none, I would ask for a motion.
Chair, this is Leetta. I move to approve the community-based child abuse prevention grants as presented.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
This is Dave Younger. I would second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, may I offer a friendly amendment to that motion?
Sure.
I would move that we accept the CBCAP grant proposal as presented to include a pro rata reduction with viability due to budgetary adjustments.
If needed?
If needed, yes.
Are the maker of the motion and the maker of the second okay with that amendment?
I'm fine with that, yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, that reflects our discussion, so I think it's appropriate. Anything further before we move to a vote? All right, this will be a roll call vote. Dave Younger?
Aye.
Representative Lauren Williams?
Aye.
Representative Christy Williams?
Aye.
Representative Suzanne Weichel?
Aye.
Dr. Tara Wallace?
Yes.
Senator Donna Sykes?
Aye.
Tabitha Rossbroy?
Aye.
Dr. Leetta Felter?
Yes.
Senator Renee Erickson?
Aye.
Senator Tori Marie Blue?
Aye.
And Chair Don Heineman votes aye. The motion passes.
Thank you all very much. And we will, as soon as I get the federal award and we have our game plan, I will email the board so that you all are kept in the loop as to where we land and whether or not we are able to simply make some across the board adjustments. Okay, moving into the early childhood block grant. Today you will receive the annual report on the Common Measures Initiative, which is our very rigorous evaluation of this grant program. This is CIF funded and has been in place since 2008. It started as with growing recognition of the importance of having quality early childhood programs and the need to help communities ensure that the needs of families with young children are being met. The block grant as a line item in the CIF budget dates back to 2008. In 2011, under the leadership of Chair Amanda Adkins, who was appointed by Governor Brownback to lead the cabinet, the board engaged in a deep dive into creating a vision for how these funds could best be leveraged to maximize the impact of a finite amount of funding. And the current approach that we have maintained through today was developed at that time by that board with that leadership. Their goals, as outlined, were to serve those with the greatest need, fund proven programs, and evaluate with rigor. And in service of that, the Common Measures Initiative was developed. This is the program that you'll be hearing about in the report. It is the vision was that there be a common set of measurement tools that could be applied across the portfolio so that like programs were measured with a uniform set of measurement tools. So instead of, each individual program picking out the way they would measure progress, we have determined the tools that will be used and the rigor of the evaluation. It is a condition of grant funding that programs agree to participate in the Common Measures Initiative, and I think it's been quite successful, and it's been in place for 14 years. So, it was the early development began in 2011. WSU Center, the Community Engagement Institute, is the organization that has been conducting the evaluation since it began. They helped develop the toolkit, and the longevity might sometimes lead us to forget how much of an accomplishment this type of study actually is and how rare it is. It is core to the statutory role the cabinet plays, that our responsibility to evaluate the use of CIF funding. And the consistent and comprehensive data collection has supported research into the effectiveness of early childhood programming in avoiding foster care removals. We have a study conducted by one of our block grantees, the Opportunity Project in Wichita, that is a true longitudinal study of the achievement and outcomes for children who participated in that high quality program as they matriculated through high school. The purpose is to meet the needs at the community level and partner with communities. So we do require community match. We want community partnerships. We look for the strength of the programs in terms of meeting needs defined locally. Our funding allows programs to offer services to families at either a reduced cost or, in some cases, no cost, and create stability in the supply of the services and programs available, particularly in rural areas of Kansas. It ensures that families have choices, and that given the strength of the partnerships, you'll see when we bring these grant proposals to the board, we have 20 some programs. It varies year to year, but 25-ish programs receive early childhood block grant funding in any given year, but they partner with a network of other programs in their areas and really help leverage the funding to deliver options to families. One thing to note is that, again, in terms of the universe of opportunities parents have, these programs, both the CBCAP and the ECBG, represent programs that are offered through referrals, but not mandated. So parents do not have to participate, but when offered a referral, it is their choice whether or not they want to participate themselves or enroll their children. So that is one of the hallmarks that sets us apart from the child welfare system, where often there are mandated requirements that parents must complete certain types of programs and trainings before being able to reunite with their children. Ours is strictly voluntary. So I will introduce Dr. Lynn Schrepperman, our lead evaluator from Wichita State University Community Engagement Institute, to provide the annual report. Dr. Schrepperman has a PhD in community clinical psychology from Wichita State University. She has extensive experience conducting the evaluations of early childhood programs, and she's worked on the development of parent education programs, assisted pre-K teachers in addressing challenges in their classrooms, and served as a principal investigator on longitudinal studies of child development. In addition, Dr. Schrepperman has been an author on peer-reviewed articles related to child development, peer influence, and parent education. She was a recipient of the Competitive Child Intervention, Prevention, and Services Fellowship from the National Institute of Mental Health. And I think, given I have had a preview of the slide presentation, Mr. Chair, it would probably be beneficial for the board if questions were held until the end. But I think without further ado, we can turn it over to Lynn.
Thank you, Melissa. Good morning, everyone. It's my honor to get to do this work, and I want to thank all of the children and families who have helped us collect this data to demonstrate the impact of these programs. I would like to thank the cabinet, and I would like to thank all the grantees who have worked so hard to collect the data. Lindsay, I don't seem to have control. Thank you. So first, I'm going to just do a brief overview. We have some really exciting data this year, and I'm very happy to be able to present this to you. So there were 26 grantees throughout the state this year. We served 8,282 children, which is over 200 more children than served last year. There were 74 counties that were served. 68% of the families qualified for free and reduced price lunch. 50% of the children either had an indicator of risk or had an established developmental delay. 88% of the families had at least one risk factor, and 43% of the families had 3 or more risk factors. Oops, sorry. Now it's working. And as far as outcomes, we had this year 88% of the parents that were engaged in our family services were shown to be at the end of their program engaging in positive parenting. This is the highest rate that we've seen in 10 years. So this is something really to be celebrated as far as the impact of our program. Another highlight is that 81% of the classrooms that are part of the program were also observed to be high quality classrooms. And we know that high quality classrooms are very predictive of good long-term outcomes for children. This is the highest quality we've had in the last 10 years. 70% of the 3-year-olds were on track in early literacy. And I'm going to dive into all this in more depth in a minute, but this is the broad overview. So don't worry, I'm not going to just giving you a quick overview here. And at least 80% of the 4-year-olds were on track in their language comprehension subtest, and 78% were on track in early numeracy. So this slide gives you an overview of the types of services that ECBG grantees are offering. Grantees are offering the services that they believe are most beneficial to their community and that the most need in their community. So each grantee selects the services that they apply to provide in their community based on the needs for their community. So it's really very much of a Kansas story and even a very more local story. Services start with in the prenatal stage with home visits. Then we have services for 0 to 3-year-olds, which can include home visits, childcare, Part C services, mental and behavioral health, and developmental screening and referral. The 3 to 5-year-olds also can be part of home visiting, childcare, pre-K, literacy activities, mental and behavioral health, and developmental screening and referral. And then caregivers engage in home visiting, some case management, and parent education. So these are the risk factors that have been laid out by the Children's Cabinet to identify families that will be served that are at risk. These are part of the request for proposal so that grantees know how we are identifying risk, and those have been most of them have been long established. There's been minor tweaks, but they've been pretty consistent. This is a map of all of the counties in Kansas that are being served, and then the pins indicate the grantees. So you can see where these services are being provided. Some of these counties actually have the opportunity for those services, but families haven't engaged but mostly we find families are engaging in all the counties that the services are being offered. I'm going to talk a little bit about risk now. I want you to keep in mind that children and families can have multiple risk factors. So there were 12% of the families that were served that, based on the standard that ECBG has set out, do not have any risk factors. I can tell you right now, I have a lot of grantees that will argue with you that those families do have risk. It's just not one of these identified risk factors. But as you can see, there are families that have 5 or more risk factors that are participating. So keep in mind when I go through the risk factors that they can have multiple risk factors. So here's kind of a snapshot of the risk for the children that were being served. So out of all the families, and this does not add up to 100% of the children. This is how many of those children had that individual risk factor. So 7% of the children that were participating were engaged in foster care or out-of-home placement. 5% were without health insurance. 22% did not speak English as their first language, and 50% had that indicator of a developmental delay. As far as the families, this slide shows you the indicators on caregiver education. We were very consistent with last year, with 11% of our caregivers having less than a high school education. These are the other family risk factors. So 68% qualified for free and reduced lunch, 48% earned less than $40,000 a year, 46% were unmarried, 26% spoke English as a second language, 6% teen parents, 6% without stable housing, and 2% migrant families. And I want to bring a little context in here. This is some research that was done by James Heckman, looking at the return on investment for different types of interventions at different stages in the lifespan. And what he found was that you really get a better return on investment the younger you start to intervene. So that prenatal 0 to 3 and 4 to 5 intervention time is the time that you're really getting more bang for your buck and a better return on investment. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the process that we went through to develop this evaluation. This is it took us a long time to think it all through, and we had a very rigorous process in order to design this intervention, and then we have stuck with that in order to continue to provide a very similar stage snapshot. So the first question you might ask is, why use common measures? We have so many different grantees, and when you take an initial look, it seems as if there is just too much that you couldn't possibly do it. So what we had to do was really find measures that were similar so that we can provide that statewide snapshot, but we also wanted to build the capacity of grantees so that they can use their data for continuous quality improvement. We wanted to have some common language so we can talk about programs that are similar. So we might have a variety of different home visiting programs, but they all have similar goals. Again, we're meeting the evaluation requirements, and we're assessing these early childhood interventions, and we are also informing you and other policymakers about the outcomes associated and the impact of these programs. So first, I'm going to talk about how we selected these measures. We used a very systematic approach that's considered best practice for identifying these measures, and the process and the criterion were established first to be applied to these measures and is applied in an ongoing manner. So what we did once we received this contract is we went to visit every single one of the grantees at the time. We read their proposals, and then we went and visited to hear about their programs. So we heard all about their different programs and looked into what measures they were currently collecting. Our second step was to look for a common language to talk about these. So rather than talking about parents as teachers, for example, we talk about home visiting programs because we've got ABC, we've got a variety of different home visiting programs. So that's part of that common language. So we categorized similar programs and connected similar goals. So one of the things that we were doing is not only looking at what they called their programs, but also what the goals of those programs were. And then we looked at how those programs mapped onto the blueprint. Grantees' programs were assigned to different program types based on their goals, how they mapped onto the blueprint, and what type of programming they were doing. Then we had a criteria for the measures. They had to have established reliability, established validity, and be sensitive to change. So I'm going to show you a graphic in just a minute that kind of goes into that, but really it was important that these be psychometrically sound, but also sensitive to that change that we're seeing over this 1-year period, because we don't want to set them up to fail by using a measure that doesn't show change over a year. We also only used measures that had empirically derived benchmarks so that we had something to compare them to. So here's a graphic to help those of you who aren't really familiar with reliability and validity. So if you have a measure that's not really hitting the mark as the one on the far left is, then it would be not valid, and it's also not hitting in the same area, then it's not reliable or valid. You could have a measure that's reliable but not valid, so it continues to measure the same area of your target, but it's not right at that central focus point of what you really want to measure. You could have a measure that's valid but not reliable, so it's within the range, but it's not in one range, it's in a variety of different ranges in your target. And then what we really were looking for is measures that were both reliable and valid. So they're hitting the target over and over and over again. So our third step, how to measure these program goals. We looked at those goals of programs and how they're consistent with the blueprint and the targets that they're identifying. And then we selected measures that were a good measure of those short-term goals. So that 1 year, this isn't a longitudinal study, but it's just that 1 year. And I want to remind you, these are individual cohorts every year that we're evaluating. There are cases, especially when we get to the classroom quality, where we have teachers that participate year after year, so we see some growth. But we don't have, this is not a longitudinal study. We're not following children over long periods of time beyond a year, and we are not serving these children. They're getting those 1 year of services. Sometimes they can be served multiple years, but this is, the intention is an annual evaluation. So then we looked at what measures were fitting those program goals. We developed a list of the recommended measures and alternatives. So we narrowed down that list to measures that we were looking at that some of the grantees were using. So we were trying to adopt measures that would be easiest for the grantees. So if many of them were already using them, and also measures that were being used by other early childhood programs in the state at the time. We also prioritize measures that would inform the program staff. So it's important to me to give you a statewide snapshot, but it's also really important to me that we use measures that grantee programs can use for that continuous quality improvement. So if they understand the measures, and we do have grantees that use the measures beyond where they're required because they find the information valuable. So I feel like we hit that mark, which makes me very happy. And we do some data coaching to help them use those measures. We also prioritize measures that take the least amount of time. So we didn't want them spending too much time and were the least expensive to administer. Then our evaluation team recommended these measures based on the criterion. So we gave the cabinet some options. The measures were assigned based on the program type, and the cost and intensity of the program was considered in how appropriate the measures are. So we don't want, if you're not spending a lot of money per child, we're not going to have you applying a measure that costs a lot more money. In February of 2014, I presented the measures to the Children's Cabinet, and they were endorsed at that time. And we started what we called our pilot phase to introduce those measures to grantees so that they could get training, they could be comfortable with the measures and be ready to apply them. Once we finished the pilot phase, then we moved into a field test, and that next year from the fall of 2014 to spring of 2015, and that data was presented for the first time to the cabinet in August of 2015. So as I said, these are annual cohorts, and so that's why we're looking at annual outcomes, but I tried to select annual outcomes that are indicators that have been associated with long-term outcomes. So these annual impacts that we're seeing are the most predictive of long-term outcomes. So we're gathering these short-term outcomes in hopes that they're associated, and based on the research, we know that they have been associated with the long-term outcomes that we're looking for. And I can tell you that interventions in early childhood have been found to have positive effects long after those interventions have ended. We do an ongoing review of the measures. From June to my presentation, we are looking at over 1 million data points. So I can't do it before I present to you, but afterwards, when things calm down, I look at, but I do take into account just, are things looking the way we expect, because we've been doing this for so long that we kind of have a feel for it. But then after that, we look at psychometric characteristics to make sure that these measures are continuing to perform in the way that we expect them to. We also keep an ongoing scan going of alternative measures just to make sure that something better hasn't come along while we are looking. So I'm going to go into the first blueprint area, which is healthy development. And so this is an area that focuses on early life skills. So the blue area is what we're going to talk about now, which has to do with your ability, a child's ability to attend, to manage their emotions, to have positive interactions with others, and to not have behavioral problems that might interfere with their academic progress. Early life skills are based in executive function, which really is a cognitive term that it is very stable predictor of outcomes through fifth grade, even more stable than some academic measures. And James Heckman has found that children that get these high quality supports in early childhood have significantly better life outcomes. And actually, the second generation is also having better life outcomes in some of their very longitudinal research where they're looking at the children of children who are participating in these programs. We do this because we think that early identification is really important and that can promote intervention and achievement of developmental milestones in the future, as well as school readiness. Those executive functions that I was mentioning can assist with self-management, engaged learning, social competency, and working memory. So this map probably looks very similar to the one to you without the markers for the individual grantees, because every grantee uses a developmental screener. And so we have a healthy development activity in all of the counties that are being served. And this developmental screener is one way that we are keeping an eye on children. We measure their risk as far as development, but we're also helping to identify children early for those services. So that developmental screener really helps us because we do early and frequent screening, which is considered best practice, and that can lead to early intervention when a child needs that intervention, and it can also lead to better outcomes and reduce cost. The other benefit of using these screenings is it allows programs to educate parents when parents may have unrealistic expectations for their children. It also is a really good way to build relationship with parents in these exchanges, because parents love to talk about their children. So that exchange of information is a really great way for them to build relationship with those families. It's also very helpful in addressing parent and teacher concerns. So if someone has concerns about a child's development, this is an important way to identify children that may have developmental problems, or maybe the child does not, and the parent's expectations or the teacher's expectations are inappropriate. It also allows us to promote activities and interactions that encourage those skill development. So many of the grantees use some provided by the screener so that if a child is showing delays in those areas. And then finally, it allows for referrals to be made in cases where a child really needs additional services. So here is the first measure that we used with children as the developmental screener. This is not an outcome measure. This is something we use to identify risk. The developers of this measure have stated quite clearly that this is not to be used as an outcome measure. It changes throughout early childhood so that it is screening for the development that is most appropriate at that age. Our levels of risk are actually lower than you typically see in when they were doing the sample that they normed all this data on. The fact that fine motor has a lower percentage meeting benchmarks is something that we've seen over the last few years. And although we don't have a whole lot of research on this as a national phenomena, it's easy to tell that it is a national phenomena because I found that medical schools and dental schools are now doing remediation for fine motor skills for people that are coming into their programs. So we also use a measure to evaluate These early life skill programs and the resilience and protective factors of attachment and relationship, self-regulation and initiative. And this is important because these really are how children adjust to classrooms. And many times kindergarten teachers say they're more concerned about how children can get along with their peers, follow directions, sit and listen, things like that, than they are that they have those academic skills when they enter the classroom. So here you can see the children who were at risk on that measure at time 1 and the change over time. So of the 238 children that showed risk initially, 52% of the children moved up above that benchmark, that cutoff for risk. So you can see a lot of nice growth there. So that means that these programs are really having an impact on the children and their ability to adapt. Next, I'm going to move to the second blueprint area, strong families. These are family services programs. And we focus on positive parenting here because that is most predictive of outcomes. Programs do things like reduce parental stress, build parenting skills, build better connections to resources, and build child outcomes. So why are we focusing on positive parenting? Well, evidence-based parent education programs have positive impacts that have in this area of positive parenting that can be seen in child outcomes years after the parent participated in the program. So parents learn new skills and they continue to provide those throughout their child's development. And for those of you who have or remember having young children, this can be a stressful time for parenting. And sometimes parents just kind of run into an area where they need just a little help. And these programs provide a little help. So I'm having trouble getting my toddler to go to bed or something where they're not eating or whatever. So we have a variety of programs, and many of these parent education programs provide different types of services and can address individual needs that parents have. These are programs that parents choose to engage with. They're not required to engage it. These are parents that are seeking out some assistance. We have home visiting programs, and those tend to, we see, improve positive parenting skills, improve early development and health for children, improve school readiness, and address behavioral problems. We also have the parent education programs, and they impact that overall parental stress, disruptive child behavior, and parents' perception of their parenting. So family programs meet a variety of needs. The other thing that is really beautiful about ECBG is it provides a variety of intensities of programming. So if a family has more need, then they can get more services. If they need a lighter touch, then that is also available. And these are gauged to the needs of the community as well. These programs can ameliorate the impacts of trauma and toxic stress, and they have been found to improve communication, life skills, brain development, which is very rapid at this point in development for children, and school readiness. These are the counties across the state where these services are being offered. So observations of positive parenting for families that were engaged in these, you can see the positive change. So we look at building relationships. This is a standardized measure where the observers have to train to criterion, and then they recertify annually so that they are using this measure with fidelity. So we're looking at these relationships, and you can see a nice increase in the building relationships, promoting learning, supporting confidence, and overall. So nice change across the board for families that are engaging in these. They also tend to, these activities also tend to reduce developmental risk. So this shows the change over time for all of the families that participated, and we saw a 16% increase in the families that were at or above benchmark. This is the highest that we've seen in the last 10 years. So this is really exciting to see because, as I said, these programs tend to have long-term impacts beyond the participation in the program. We also looked at the families that had indication of risk at time 1. So 266 caregivers were below the cutoff and for positive parenting, and 74% of them were in that range of positive parenting by time 2. So these programs are having a very nice impact, and as I said, this is the strongest we've seen. The final area I'm going to talk about today is early learning. So the area of the blueprint for early learning focuses on quality care and education. There is a large body of research that shows that quality really matters. So that's one of our focuses in this, is that we want to make sure that we are working with high quality programs so that we're really impacting these children in their positive interactions and their future academics. And we also, for the children that are at the older end of the spectrum, have a focus on phonemic awareness because this is crucial. The research has really found that phonemic awareness is very predictive of future reading. So access to high quality early education can break that poverty cycle for generations. James Heckman has found a 13% return on investment. We see significantly better outcomes for employment, education, and social behaviors, as well as health. We also see those second generation effects that I mentioned earlier. So lower school suspension and higher high school completion, higher full-time employment, and lower crime. These are the counties that are getting early learning programs in the state. And this gives you an idea of the variety of different programs and hours. So this isn't a one-size-fits-all program. The hours range from less than 8 to 16, all the way up to more than 40. So they meet the needs of the family in these child care and early learning programs. The first measure I want to talk about is our observations of classroom quality. And these are really important because these classroom interactions are very predictive of long-term outcomes. As a nerdy researcher, I will tell you that people that do research in education or in social areas typically don't get a whole lot of publications in the journal Science, and yet this measure has been published in the journal Science as being superior to many other measures of quality for classrooms. And so I'm excited that we have this because it's been very predictive of both social and early life skills, but also academic outcomes. And it really focuses on those interactions between the caregivers and the children, which are the most predictive. So it's really looking at those high quality classrooms. And once you get to pre-K, then it's looking at some of the cognitive and how teachers are managing their classrooms as well. So responsive serve and return relationships, which is very predictive of good long-term outcomes for children. So here you can see these are divided. It is a little different for each age group. So you wouldn't expect an infant classroom to look the same as a pre-K classroom, but you can see that our classroom averages are well above the benchmarks that have been established as indicators of what is high quality throughout all 3 age ranges. And you might wonder why instructional support is a little bit lower, the benchmark is for pre-K, and that's because that is what's appropriate for this age. So you wouldn't want to put 4 and 5-year-olds in a classroom that is doing heavy duty academic work. Most of these classrooms have all of these classrooms, I should say, have very play-based, fun-oriented activities, but you also want children to have time to explore and learn on their own, and so that's why it's not any higher. And here you can see our overall quality and the change in quality across the years. So all 3 types of observations improved, and at 81% overall, we have the highest classroom quality we've had in 10 years. As I said, although we have individual annual cohorts, some of these teachers remain, sorry, bumped my keyboard. Oh, sorry, went the wrong way now. So that benefits us because then they have these teachers that are continuing to benefit from the services and the support that they're getting in these classrooms. But 81% high quality is just makes me happy. Granted, I would love it to be 100%, but 81%, the best in 10 years is great. Next, I'm going to talk about early literacy and numeracy for the 3 and 4-year-olds. These measures are important as predictors of future academic abilities. We're going to look at the ability to derive meaning and draw inferences from written and spoken language because that's very predictive of reading. Vocabulary is also another area that is predictive of reading and language comprehension. And then there's the phonemic awareness and the ability to identify and manipulate sounds that in spoken language. That is the key to learning to read. There have been quite a few studies that talk about strong phonological awareness in pre-K and how that is predictive of proficiency in reading in 3rd grade. And I also like it because these measures give classrooms and teachers the ability to monitor progress monitoring. And this is one of the areas where we do data coaching. So once they finish the fall measure, we have calls with all of the grantees. By the way, they all get their own report that shows their individual outcomes for the year so that they can use their data. But we also do these data coaching calls so that we can have a collaborative discussion about what the differences we're seeing in these outcomes and where they might be able to, maybe they have a teacher that's a great resource or different things. So we work on that. I can also tell you that pre-K numeracy skills those strong skills are very predictive of future academic success. Thankfully, in Kansas, we tend to do very well in numeracy year after year. So this is the 3-year-old measure because literacy rolls out individual skills one at a time. So you will see that, for example, here you see oral language started really high. So the ability to identify objects and give their name or identify on, under, beside, those things are something that's pretty well established even for these children at the beginning of their 3-year-old year. Many of them also can identify their letters, and so those are pretty high, but that sound matching is something that is just beginning to come online, and this is the early part of that literacy, and so that's why you see so much growth in sound matching across the year. Here we have the 4-year-old literacy, and again, these individual areas are developing. So alliteration, we don't even give that subtest until winter because that skill is not expected to be coming online until then. So in the fall of their 4-year-old year, they are not getting the alliteration subtest, and so that's why it's lower. I find it fascinating year after year. So I've had this data for 12 years now. We just do fantastic on which one doesn't belong. That is the most difficult subtest nationally, and yet in Kansas, we always do really, really well. And look at all that growth in which one doesn't belong. As you can see, sound identification, which is the next step in that sound matching is just beginning, and that is a place where they're starting to get those skills. And then we've got rhyming and picture naming. Picture naming is, they're really pretty high in that area, and they start high most years. And here you can see the change overall from fall to spring. So their overall scores, this is not the percentage on track, this is their score. So you can see the shift to the right as their scores increase. I like to give people data in different forms so that, because everybody kind of connects with different types of data. So that's why you're seeing the same data in different kinds of interpretations and different ways to see the data. So you saw the percent on track, and now you're seeing the scores. And here's early numeracy for the 3 and 4-year-olds. Quantity comparison is the area that is the last one at this age. And you can see quite a bit of growth. Oral counting, they do very well at. We had a little bit of decline in number naming, but as you can see, we're still above 90% of the children on track at the end of the year, even though we had a decline. And it can be that sometimes when children are doing really well in one area, and so the teacher shifts the focus, they may have a few children may have lost that skill or declined a little bit. And then one-to-one correspondence counting is the other skill set that we look at in this area. And again, these are the overall scores. So here you can see the increase in the scores. Numeracy is a little different because literacy is benchmarked by season. So we have fall, winter, and spring. Numeracy has benchmarks for each individual month. So it makes it a little more complicated as far as the data, understanding the data. But you can see all the strong growth in all these scores. Even those that were at the bottom, you can see a shift. So overall, 8,282 children were served in 74 counties by 26 grantees. 88% had at least one risk factor and 43% had 3 or more. We had 81% high quality classrooms, as I keep saying, the highest in 10 years. You can tell I'm excited about that. 70% of the 3-year-olds were on track in early literacy, and at least 80% of the 4-year-olds were on track in the language comprehension subtests. 78% of the children were on track in early numeracy, which is, the developers of the test don't always let me have national data, but when they did a few years ago, we are above the national averages on numeracy. And we saw the highest rate of positive parenting in the last 10 years. So that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Lynn. Your presentation is always very interesting and informative. So we really appreciate the work you do on behalf of the Children's Cabinet.
Thank you.
Members, questions? I see Leetta's hand.
Thank you, Dawn. So I was on the cabinet back in 2014 when we discussed implementing these common measures. And Dr. Sherberman, thank you for presenting this today, because now it shows basically a decade of, as you put it, the Kansas story and the local story. And wow, a lot stands out to me. I made some notes about, first of all, thank you for the partnership with WSU. You've done a great job. I always look forward to this. The data process and the rigor is second to none. It's amazing what we do here at the Kansas Children's Cabinet with the data. I'd put it up against any other organization. The good outcomes that stood out to me were the percentage of classrooms. So 81% that were observed to have high quality, and the highest has been for 10 years, and that 88% of parents engaged in positive parenting. That's amazing, the highest rate in 10 years also. And then 70% of 3-year-olds on track with early literacy. I mean, as we know, that impacts K through 12 and really the trajectory of your life. But we're interested in K through 12 because of the cost of educating the kids in K through 12. So fantastic work. I just want to thank you and your team and all of the grantees. As you said, there are boots on the ground essentially, and that's where the work starts. So Josie keeps interfering, the rescue Velcro dog, but we're very excited about what you've done. So thank you very much. I'm so excited to have been somewhat a part of this journey and to see, I mean, we can never forget that this is the lives of our youngest kids, our most vulnerable kids in Kansas, and it's truly doing right by them. And any investment we make in them and the programs that are impacting them, we've got great data to show it's making a big difference. So, and thank you, Dr. Sherperman.
Well, thank you.
Tori Blue.
Thank you. This is my first children's cabinet meeting, so I'm trying to digest all of your information and learn I'm a new parent myself, so I'm trying to see what can I do as a parent. And my first question, you maybe said it earlier, because there's days that I feel like I'm struggling as a parent, and there's days where I think I'm doing okay. So what is the definition of positive parenting?
The measure that we're using, I don't think I still have control. Lindsay, do I still have control? I was going to go back.
No, but I'm happy to navigate there. Just
Okay. I thought it would be easier to look at that. Can you go up to the positive parenting section?
And if I missed it, I apologize. I was
Oh
trying
no,
to deep dive into all of this.
This is an overwhelming amount of data. So I think it's probably overwhelming to many people. Lindsay, can you go up? Whoop, there we go. No, down. Can you give, let's see. I can't see which one you're.
Lynn, she's on why positive parenting.
Yeah, I was just that when she was talking about how we're defining positive parenting, there's another one that would be better. Next, no, one more. Down one, please. There. No.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. We'll get there. Lindsay, can you go down to the positive parenting? Keep going. There we go. So the measure that we're using, it has to do with building relationship with your child, promoting. So really at the heart of positive parenting is those positive interactions. I totally understand how, especially when you've got all the hormones, if you've just had a child, but parents all question themselves. But it's nobody's perfect. No parent is perfect. Sometimes they have good days, sometimes they have bad days, but it looks at the parent building those positive relationships with their child, and it actually adapts for the age. It also looks at how they're promoting learning for their child in the most developmentally appropriate way, and then they're supporting the confidence of their child. So, for example, with an older child, you're encouraging them to take small risks and celebrate their achievements, that kind of thing. So it's really it's a play-based measure. So the parent and the child play, which is great because then you get those natural interactions. But it's just that kind of a parent's ability to, and it's got components that have for children that are a little bit older, not for infants, but setting limits. So it's balancing those positive interactions with the ability to set limits.
Lynn, can you speak to the kind of programs that support those skills?
So we have a variety of home visiting programs, some that are more intense like ABC, but we also have Parents as Teachers, which is a lower intensity program that works with families. And there's a whole bunch of others, Nurturing Families. So there's a lot of different home visiting programs that help parents adapt to their role as a parent and manage different strengths or difficulties that they're encountering. And then we also have parent education programs. So parent education programs, there's a variety of different kinds of parent education programs, from some conscious discipline programs to triple P. So there's several evidence-based programs, and these programs typically, triple P has a varying levels. So you can have a couple visits from this person and do some parent education where they teach you how to track the behaviors better if you're having some struggles, but also how to manage and how to work with your child, to a regular parenting class. Conscious discipline has some regular classes. I'm trying to think of all the different parenting, because there's a variety of different parenting, but many of them, some of them meet in groups, some of them meet one-on-one. So it's not a one size fits all, that's for sure.
Okay. And then
did I answer your question, or is there something more specific?
No, I just was curious yeah, that's great. And then
Okay.
the second question I have, and this may be an overall question, and it may not pertain to this study, but my question is, as a new mom, and I'm considered now in the older age bracket of moms being 32, are you seeing older parents over this data over time? Because, I think back to my parents' generation, so forth, they had their kids early 20s, and now you're seeing a lot more parents have kids in their 30s. I'm just kind of curious if you're seeing that overall.
We haven't compared over the years, but I will tell you that we don't have a very large percentage of teen parents that are engaging in these activities. So that would tell me that we probably have more older parents. We aren't, our task is not to compare year to year. It's for the 1 year evaluation. So it's more anecdotal, and it's not something, because we have so many data points, that I looked at this year.
Lynn, I'm curious, this is Melissa. Is there data collected that would answer that question if you were to go back and take a look, or do we not collect that data point about the age of the parents involved?
We have at some periods of time, but then there's other times when we just have asked if they were a teen parent or not.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
We're always trying to balance less paperwork, but as much information as we need.
Okay, question from Tara Wallace.
Dr. Shepperman, this was amazing. I'm a data person myself, so I'm really excited to see all of this, but I have a question that kind of ties into Tori's question. At any point, do you collect qualitative data so that parents can have those, in hindsight, responses to the things that you're showing? Once you put all of these data points together, I'm sure there's some qualitative stories somewhere in there that would support it and probably strengthen it for anyone that's using this to apply for additional grants and things of that nature. Because as Tori said, there's things that she had questions immediately and wanted an understanding. And for a parent that's been through this and seen how the changes in their own child, is that recorded or given to the organization so that they can share that with the families that they serve?
No. I was told early on that my goal to meet the goals of the statute for the evaluation is quantitative data. The people at CPPR do a lot of qualitative data collection that does include ECBG families, I believe, but I really can't speak to the work that they're doing. We have, anecdotal stories, but we haven't had systematic collection of qualitative data.
But Lynn, you do meet with each of the grant programs.
Yes.
After. Can you describe how you share back data with the grantees?
This afternoon, I will shift my focus. Some of the members of my team have been working on it already, so our team has kind of a split focus at this time of the year. Some of them working on grantee reports, and some of us are working on the cabinet report, but then we will all focus on that. And then we will go and visit each one. So Christy Wyckoff from the cabinet and I go to visit each grantee and deliver a individual report on the measures that they collected and talk with them about that. So we do things because the parent education is so diverse. We don't compare parent education programs, but we do help them like look at their classrooms within context and where the gains that they're making. And we go over all the information that we've collected for each individual grantee and make sure that they understand it and find out if they have questions or concerns or comments.
And you do coach where
Yes. And then
coaching
we do
is
the data coaching that I mentioned earlier. Yeah. So we do some data coaching during the year related to the more academic measures. And then we also do some coaching when we go do visits if there's a need. It's a really nice collaborative meeting because I have some of the information and they have some of the information. Many of the grantees will have all of their program leads. Some of them even have program staff attend the meetings so that we can help them to understand their data and what it shows about the services that they're providing.
Further questions for Lynn? Yes, Dave Younger.
Lynn, this is Dave Younger. I think you just answered my question. So you do look at the data separately with the grantees.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go coach them. You're not comparing it with each group because they all provide different services. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
The only
Okay.
place we provide any comparisons is just classrooms across the state, and that's just to help them understand the gains in those academic measures.
And then if you see an area that may be a little lower than it should be, you coach them up on that area possibly?
We have
Okay.
discussions about their struggles sometimes. Sometimes they might need to shift focus in an area. It really it depends on the data
Sure.
and
Sure.
what they're telling me about what's going on.
All right. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, it's Renee Erickson.
Yes, Renee.
Yes, thank you, Lynn, so much for the report. Always good. Just a quick question. In education K-12, we are very focused on literacy, as I'm sure you're aware, and it's encouraging the results that you're seeing with literacy at this young age. My question is, we're not seeing that translate into early elementary and up. Do you have any explanation as to why we're not seeing those same levels if they're getting that training early?
Well, I would say we don't know if it doesn't translate up because this isn't a longitudinal study and this is a very small proportion of the children that we're assessing later in the K through 12. So we really don't know how well it's translating, but I would say that there's quite a bit of research that would indicate that it does translate up. There are studies that show that children that are exposed to that phonological awareness in that 4-year-old pre-K year are much more likely to be reading on grade level at 3rd grade than children who are not. And all of these programs are engaging in those type of activities.
But we don't necessarily know that for this specific cohort.
No, because we don't
children
have
that you're working that we can't. Is it possible to get that longitudinal data? Is it possible to see the long-term effects of that? If we're seeing such positive results early, I would hope they would carry through that child's educational career, but we don't currently have a way of knowing that. Is that what I'm hearing?
If I may, this is Melissa. Senator, we have engaged in a data sharing agreement with the Kansas Department of Education and have shared our data set to match into the kids' system, the system the intention is to create a longitudinal data system that shows the continuum from early childhood to post-secondary. I see Amanda came off mute. Would you like to weigh in as well?
I'd love to. Hello, everybody. My name is Amanda Peterson. I'm the Director of Early Childhood at the Kansas State Department of Education. And yes, as Melissa said, we have finalized a data sharing agreement with the Children's Cabinet and are working to match and analyze that data right now. I do think that the second piece that Dr. Schreferman shared is a really important one when we're considering comparing this data to statewide data, appreciating that we are seeing really incredible gains in the evaluation of early childhood block grantees, but also appreciating that this represents a very, very small proportion of the 3 and 4-year-olds in Kansas. And so we're excited that we are going to be able to better match and zoom in on this particular cohort of children to be able to see whether this limited and very high quality early childhood investment leads to improvements when we think about, say, 3rd grade English language arts results. It is helpful to keep in mind that it does take a little bit of time. So when we think about this cohort of children from 2024 to 2025, whose data we're looking at this year, the oldest children in this cohort are just entering kindergarten in the coming weeks. And so we have to be able to back up a little bit to be able to look at previous cohorts of early childhood block grantees in order to be able to give enough time to have assessment data to be able to compare to. But Melissa mentioned earlier the Opportunity Project longitudinal study, and that's one great example of a local project where they have been able to, again, locally work together with USD 259 Wichita and USD 260 Derby and the parents who were involved in that program to be able to track longitudinally those children's progress as they matriculate through the K-12 system. Does that answer your question, or at least maybe set the stage for a future presentation? I do promise that 3rd grade reading score or 3rd grade ELA assessments are certainly on our list of data points to consider when we're thinking about outcomes.
Yeah, I will just reiterate that, we are in a literacy crisis, and I've heard for quite some time, yes, we're going to have longitudinal data available. So I guess what I would like to know is when exactly can we expect to see the data that is the benefit of this agreement with the Children's Cabinet and KSDE? When will we be able to actually see that data?
Absolutely. We're balancing a couple of different priorities to think about early childhood block grant data, parents as teachers data, but I'd expect that we would have preliminary data that we'd be able to share with this group within the next 4 months.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
I will email the board the study that we're referencing. I think some of you maybe have seen it before, but I'll make sure all of our board members receive the top research and convey the wishes of the board in partnership with Amanda back to the folks at KSDE so that we are sure to receive the kind of analysis that everyone is so interested in seeing. And I'll just note that I don't know about the rest of you, there have been a whole lot of technology glitches going on in the last couple days. One of them is happening with our Zoom feed, so bear with us if you see some anomalies, but we're gonna try and keep this presentation going.
All right, thank you, Amanda. Something to look forward to. Further questions for Lynn? All right, seeing none, Lynn, thank you again for an excellent presentation, and thank you and your staff for the work that you do on behalf of the cabinet every year.
Thank you.
Moving on now to early childhood recommendations panel membership. We'll have an update from Melissa Schoenberger on staff at the Children's Cabinet.
Thank you. Good morning. As shared by the chair, my name is Melissa Schomberger. I serve as the Cabinet's Early Childhood System Specialist and also as the chair of the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel. So as the chair, I come forward to you this morning to make a recommendation of 2 additional panelists to be added to the 2025-2026 slate previously approved in June. As a reminder, the panel serves under Executive Order 2002, and the 2 additional panelists will round out a group of deep early childhood stakeholders. Next slide, please, Lindsay. So, Mr. Chair, I come and present to you this morning Desiree Strait and Megan Cook to be added to the 2025-2026 Early Childhood Recommendations Panel. As a reminder for new members of the board present today, panel members only serve for a year, and the Early Childhood Recommendations Panel is an advisory group to the Cabinet, as outlined again in Executive Order 2002, and is a federal requirement. And so, Mr. Chair, I would recommend that we move forward with Desiree Strait and Megan Cook to be added to this year's Early Childhood Recommendations Panel.
All right, thank you, Melissa, and welcome aboard. I think you've only been with the cabinet for a couple of months.
That's correct. Thank you.
All right. Can we do a roll call vote on this, or can we do it by acclamation?
I believe. Oh, go ahead, Melissa.
I was just going to say, Mr. Chair, I think it's your preference.
Yeah.
Let's do a roll call. We'll just be consistent that way if Lindsay's prepared. We'll need a motion first. I would entertain a motion to approve these additions to the recommendation panel.
Tabitha Rossbroy, I move that we approve these recommendations for the recommendation panel, these appointments.
All right.
Yeah, I'll second.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded to approve these recommendations. Dave Younger.
Aye.
Laura Williams.
Aye.
Christy Williams.
Aye.
Suzanne Weichel.
Aye.
Tara Wallace.
Yes.
Donna Sykes may have left.
She stepped out.
Yep. Tabitha Rossbroy.
Aye.
Leetta Felter.
Yes.
Renee Erickson.
Aye.
Tori Blue.
Aye.
Aye.
And Chair Don Heineman votes aye. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Director's update, Melissa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, in preparation for the meeting, wanted to make sure there was ample time for all of the questions and discussion that might ensue from the various points of business ahead. So I did not prepare a lengthy update today. We have successfully navigated the transition between state fiscal year 25 and state fiscal year 26. Those of you on the state agencies side of things know that that is a balancing act, as systems have to be shut down and things have to be reopened, and let's just say the last 2 months have been a lot of things to manage, and I want to express appreciation for our cabinet staff in navigating the process successfully. I want to pause because I'm wondering, is there a board member question from Senator Blue, or is that hand raised from a prior?
My apologies, I forgot to take it off.
Okay, all right. I want to make sure everyone has a voice when they have questions. So I want to thank staff, and as Dawn mentioned, Melissa S is our newest cabinet member representing full staffing here within the cabinet. She is a longtime veteran of the Kansas early childhood ecosystem, and I am delighted and honored to welcome her to our team and serve as the liaison between a variety of different working groups and organizations and activities that go on across the landscape of early childhood programs. It is very helpful to have Melissa, and especially because of the experience she brings as a member of our team. So we thank her for that. I will, as the year ahead unfolds, I will include updates as relevant and you know, as I have them to offer on the planning for the transition into the Office of Early Childhood. There is planning that will be happening all year. It'll be a sprint from start to finish. I would say the update today is that the core team representing the variety of state agencies that need to be involved, that team has been announced, and it includes Department of Administration, the KDHE, DCF, KSDE, and the Children's Cabinet, because ours are the portfolio of programs that will be moving about. And it's senior leadership, it's secretary level leadership, it's chief financial officers from each agency. It's the right high level leadership with the idea that as specific topics come up, if we need a particular skill set that isn't part of the core team, the people who have the knowledge necessary will be invited to weigh in and confer with the planning team. We are on the brink of hearing who will be named director. I think there have been a series of interviews conducted to fill that role, the 1 year the temporary director who coordinates the process. So I look forward to engaging. I know there is already an effort to sort through the key concerns that each agency was asked to bring to the mix and make sure our priorities and questions and key considerations are categorized and set up and ready to be addressed. So that's the update on the office. We've submitted the continuation applications as noted for the CBCAP, the Preschool Development Grant Year 2, and our CanLink federal grant awards. So in this realm, we have confidence that things will unfold on a timely basis. So I think, Mr. Chair, the reason we removed the agency updates today is because I am cognizant that we have a whole group of brand new members to the cabinet board, and I thought it would be nice to cede time back to you to guide introductions, and I would encourage the ex officio members or their designees who are in attendance to also introduce yourselves at the appropriate time. So Mr. Chair, I'm going to give the time back to you unless a board member has any questions before we turn to the introductions.
Any questions for Melissa? Well, if not, I want to set the stage a little bit. with the legislation that was passed last spring, the size of the cabinet has expanded from 9 to 11 to additional appointees by legislative leadership. And with that turnover, we have 5 new members with us today. So that's a pretty significant level of turnover. So introductions are certainly appropriate, and we would have done it at the first, except we were anxious to accelerate the process of taking action on key deliverables. So we will now sort of back up and have self-introductions. I'm not sure how we proceed with this. I guess I'll go ahead with mine, and then
what if we put the slide with the roll call up on screen, and you can tick through that, and then we would just ask the agency members to popcorn through introductions.
That sounds good. Dave Younger, you're up.
Thank you. I'm trying to get unmuted here. I'm Dave Younger. I'm the executive director at the Northwest Kansas Educational Service Center in Oakley, Kansas. We serve 18 school districts, primarily with special ed staff, but we're about 80% special ed and 20% Head Start program here in the northwest corner of the state. So I've been a lifelong educator and really happy to be on the committee.
All right, thank you, Dave. Next is Representative Laura Williams.
Hey everyone, I am Laura Williams. I represent House District 30, which represents parts of Lenexa and Olathe. If you're familiar with the Lenexa City Center, that's my district. I serve on House Financial Institutions and Pensions, House Commerce, and I vice chair Judiciary. And I am excited to be the House Majority Leader's new appointee with House Bill 2045's new appointments. And I helped in the House with this piece of childcare legislation that passed this year. So I'm excited to serve on this cabinet and excited to learn as well. So thank you.
All right. Welcome, Laura. Representative Christy Williams.
Thank you. This is my conclusion of 1 year on the committee, the Children's Cabinet, and I'm Speaker's appointee. Have been in the House for 12 years, currently serving as Vice Chair of Appropriations with a slew of other committees as well, and appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Christy. Next is Representative Suzanne Weichel.
Hello, everyone. Again, apologies, my camera is not working today. I'm Representative Suzanne Weichel. I represent House District 10, which is part of Lawrence. I am in my first legislative year. This past session was my first session, and also a new appointee to this board, appointed by House Minority Leader Brandon Woodard. Very happy to be here. Prior to running for office, I have done almost 2 decades of policy work in children and family area and anti-poverty area. So very excited to be here. Thank you.
Welcome, Suzanne. Dr. Tara Wallace.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Tara Wallace, and I am a social worker, clinical social worker in Topeka. I also have a nonprofit that serves the families of the children that I work with in trauma. And I believe this is my first year. I'm coming up on full year. And I'm excited to be here, appointed by the governor, and happy to be doing the work that we do.
Next is Senator Dinah Sykes, who has a higher priority at the moment. So we'll go on ahead to Tabitha Rossbroy.
Good morning, everyone. I am Tabitha Rossbroy. I am 2020 Kansas and National Teacher of the Year, early childhood educator most of my career. I live in Winfield, but now I work for Kansas Parent Information Resource Center, known as KPERC, and we are a project of TASN. and it is our statewide family engagement network. And so I am involved in anything that has to do with helping our schools and childcare partners get better at family engagement, and also serve in any capacity that I can to further the efforts of our state's early childhood initiative. So I'm really excited to be here and honored and thankful to have time with all of you.
Welcome, Tabitha. Glad to have you on board. Next is Dr. Leetta Felter.
Thank you, Chair Heineman. And welcome to all of the new members and existing members. It's just an honor to serve alongside of you and to have such amazing top shelf individuals willing to work together to serve Kansas kids. It's exciting, and we face challenges together as a heavy lift, and I'm thrilled to be a part of this group. I've been on the cabinet for 12 years. I've been honored to have been appointed by 3 governors, Brownback, Collier, and Governor Kelly. And I serve on the Olathe City Council. I've served 12 years on the Olathe Public Schools Board of Education and until 2023. And we own a local business in Olathe. So it's great to be here today. Thank you so much.
Senator Renee Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome to all the new members. Renee Erickson, I serve Senate District 30, which is East Wichita, part of Derby and part of Mulvane. I was appointed by the Senate President. I chair the Senate Education Committee and the Government Efficiency Committee and serve on various other committees, and I'm just happy to be here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Senator Tori Marie Blue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Tori Marie Blue, and I am a senator for the 33rd District. I live in Great Bend and represent 11 counties, which is central and western Kansas. I was appointed by the Senate Majority Leader, had 8 years in the House, and now finishing up my first year in the Senate, and on numerous committees, and looking forward to being on this cabinet. And again, I talk about this all the time, but as a new mom, my view on life has changed drastically, and so I look forward to being on this committee and learning a lot and showing how Western Kansas, we do things a little differently out here. So looking forward to being on this committee.
Well, welcome, Tori, and I think your perspective as a new mom will be valuable having you on the committee. So welcome. I'm Don Heineman. I'm a farmer and rancher from Western Kansas. How does that intersect with early childhood? Well, my own personal experience, not, but my wife, Betsy, had a 40-year career in education, almost all of it focused on early childhood. And through her, I developed an appreciation for early childhood and the absolute critical importance of early education and intervention. And that's what got me on this committee. So I'm glad to be a part of it. And I appreciate all of you offering your time and your expertise to do the work of the cabinet. Going ahead to the ex officios, Amanda Peterson, we've already heard from, but Amanda, give us your story.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. My name is Amanda Peterson. I serve as the Kansas Commissioner of Education, Dr. Randy Watson's designee on this cabinet. I am so lucky to get to be the Director of Early Childhood at the Kansas State Department of Education. I work with a phenomenal team here and get to work with districts all across the state in developing and delivering really high quality early childhood programs. And so our team supports schools in preschool, both general education and special education for 3- and 4-year-olds, the Kansas Parents as Teachers program. We support the statewide system for developmental screenings that we discussed a little bit earlier today. And we do whatever we can to partner with schools to help them build stronger early childhood systems. I am also a new mom and love bringing that here. It was a real bright spot about a year ago when my son Owen was still coming to the office with me to have him be able to join me for a couple of children's cabinet meetings. So now he is a toddler and is a bit of a handful, and so is not on the Zoom with me today. But I do agree that is also a real joy. So anytime that I can do anything to connect any of you all with things happening at KSDE, I will note that if you want to stay up to date, you can visit www.ksde.gov, and our communications team sends out a really nice comprehensive newsletter. So that's right there on the homepage, and you can click to sign up so that you get that every week.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. Amy Dean Campmeyer from KDHE.
Good morning, everybody. As Dawn said, my name is Amy Dean Campmeyer. I am a co-director for the Bureau of Family Health within the Department of Health and Environment. Our programs serve many of the early childhood programs within our agency, and those include our Part C program, our home visiting programs, which is our Universal, and our McV, and also our Special Healthcare Needs program. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Brandy Wells from Board of Regents.
Hello, I'm Brandy Wells. I'm with the Board of Regents, which is the higher level of education. We help with creating education programs for teachers and training the staff that's taking care of the kids. I also have two littles. We are part of Parents as Teachers. I serve on a school board down here, highly invested in the little kids. So, hello.
All right, thank you. Derek Fleur-Lodge, also from KDHE.
Chair, you get better and better each time at that last name. Hi, everybody. I'm Derek Fleur-Lodge. No expectation that you say that, how I say it, by the way. I am the director, alongside Amy, I'm the co-director for the Bureau of Family Health. I'm also the co-director for the Bureau of Disease Control and Prevention now at KDHE, so a couple different lines of work here for the department on my end of things. I oversee childcare licensing, at least for the moment, for the foreseeable future, as well as our WIC program, our state WIC program. We have a palliative care program here at KDHE, and then on the Bureau of Disease Control and Prevention side, that includes I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. So disease outbreaks, prevention, treatment, all of the above kind of fits within that general explanation there. When I'm not doing any of that, like Amanda, anytime I can mention my wife and kids, I try to. My wife is a labor and delivery nurse. I'm actually a respiratory therapist by trade as well, so healthcare is my background. We have 4 children now. Benson is a little infant still. He's 4 months now. So we're getting into those infant childcare rates again, which is no bueno for our family budget. All of our kiddos have attended family childcare or home childcare, so I've got that personal experience. And then on the professional end, just keeping that in mind as we work with providers and families alike. So excited to continue serving in this capacity for however long I am asked to do so. And if I can ever be helpful, I've had several good conversations with many of the members on this board. And if I can be helpful in any manner, just holler at us. We're an open book, or at least try to be. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Derek. Justice Melissa Standridge from Kansas Supreme Court.
Oh, you just elevated me to the United States Supreme Court. Wow, thanks. No, my name is Melissa Standridge, and I am an ex officio member. I'm a justice on the Kansas Supreme Court, but probably more importantly, for purposes of the Children's Cabinet, I've been a foster adopt mom for 35 years. I've had 15 foster kids. I have 6 Standridges. There's 6 Standridge kids ranging in age from 16 to 37. I am the person, hopefully you heard about the Child Welfare Summit about a year and a half ago. I spearheaded that. It was a 3-branch initiative. And we're working very diligently on lots of projects following up on that. And I'm just delighted to be, a part of the Children's Cabinet.
All right, thank you. And finally, Matt Billinger from KDOC.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Billinger. I am a representative of the Kansas Department of Corrections. I work in the juvenile services field, primarily with the Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee. A lot of our work is working with our community partners and helping fund and support those community partners in the addressing juvenile corrections. Other than that, I also kind of stumbled into corrections coming from working in a juvenile social services arena, behavioral health care, and then eventually got into corrections, and I've been doing that for about 20 years now. I also have a couple of little ones. We are out of the daycare stage, but still in grade school, and excitingly watching that develop. So we are here to help and provide any input. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Matt. Melissa, any final items or remarks you'd like to make?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank everybody. Well, I should first mention that DCF also is a designee to the cabinet and unfortunately could not have a representative here today, but they are one of the 6 agencies that currently advise the cabinet in this capacity. The bill did make a provision that starting next year, July 1st, under the leadership of the director of the Office of Early Childhood, that director shall have a seat as an ex officio member as well, just so that there is a voice that can help ensure coordination and take concerns or observations back into the work of the office. So that change will come, that piece of the bill takes effect next year when the office officially opens its doors. So I am grateful to all of you for committing the time out of very busy lives to focus on our work, and appreciate those of you whose own personal kitchen cabinets include young children. I think that's a perspective that is always beneficial. Some of us are veterans, and maybe it's that next generation of grandchildren that are helping advise us and keep our interests focused on the well-being of children across the state. But either way, we all have nice life experiences and perspectives to offer to the work. So I'm grateful for that. We are not in a position today to need to hold a meeting of the Imagination Library of Kansas nonprofit board, but just noting that 4 times a year that nonprofit holds board meetings, and you all, by provision in state statute, comprise the members of the board of that nonprofit. So those meetings we will try and schedule into the window reserved on your calendars for cabinet meetings to minimize the burden on your time, but they are separate meetings from the official cabinet business. I'm delighted to have the ability to turn it back to you, Mr. Chair. We have completed the business of this meeting, so.
All right, thank you, Melissa. That does bring us to the last item on the agenda, mentioning the upcoming meetings for the remainder of the year. Both of them will be virtual on October 3rd and December 5th. Melissa, can you give us just a preview of what might be the content of those 2 meetings?
Yes.
For all the newbies.
Absolutely. I would say the October meeting is a window in the calendar year where we will not have new grants to offer. It's an opportunity for us to bring you additional reporting and really use it as framework and table setting for the December meeting, when we will bring you the annual report. You will receive it as cabinet members as a draft in advance of the meeting. We encourage you to review that annual report and come to the meeting. We'll walk through the content areas and then allow for questions and discussion. And ultimately, it is the board needs to accept the report as the official report on the year, and then we use that as the report to the governor and the legislature. So we convey that annual report to the appropriate parties. So that will complete the business of the year. We meet 6 times a year. It's the first Friday morning of alternate months. So we'll, from December, we'll let everyone enjoy the holiday season and then come back in February. We will have the meeting schedule for 2026 available at the October meeting for the board to review, but meetings will pick up again in February and follow the same cadence: February, April, June, August, October, December, first Fridays. We aim to meet once a year in person. We've found that meeting virtually allows people who are either in their home area of the state and it saves a lengthy commute, or perhaps traveling but able to carve out the time and join virtually. It has helped attendance over the years, and it makes it easier for the universe outside the cabinet governing board to follow along with the business of the cabinet, because we live stream the meetings and post recording of the meetings on our website. So it has been our practice since 2019 to live stream the meetings. So we were doing it before the pandemic turned it into the thing. And yeah, so it has been, I think, well received. So that's the expectation for the framework of meetings, and give it back to you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Melissa, and thank you once again, you and your staff, for the work you do on behalf of well, the members of the cabinet, but more importantly, the children of the state of Kansas. It's vital work. We have a good team in place, and thank you for that. At this point, we've completed our work. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Lietta, so moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second. This is Suzanne Weichel.
All right, a motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you all, and we will see you in a couple of months.